All right, y'all. Well, welcome back to the channel. Happy Monday, everybody. And, well, we did it. We pulled it off. I would say, successfully did the whole too big to rig thing. So congratulations to everybody who was hoping for this outcome. And my apologies to everyone who wasn't. You have made yourselves known. So while that is incredibly exciting, it does leave the question of if the Democrat Party will take a step back and realize why this happened, because we didn't just win. It was what some may call a landslide. We won every single swing state. We won the Senate as of today, which is November 8th. It's looking pretty good for us taking the House as well. So, yeah, the people have spoken. So I want to look at today. Why? How did we get here? How did the Democrats lose so embarrassingly? And will they realize it? But before we get into any of that, this is your reminder to subscribe to this channel. Leave this video a thumbs up. It really does help me out a ton, and I appreciate it greatly. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure you leave this show a rating and a review. All of my other social medias are linked down below, as always. And without any further ado, my name is Noelle. This is Just Say No. Let's dive right in. Okay, well, it has been nearly a week since Trump blew Kamala's cackling ass out of the water, and the relief that I have felt every single day since, I can't even begin to put it into words. I feel like the country has a chance at a course correction now. I feel very hopeful for the future. But a lot of people do not. A lot of people are convinced that our democracy ended on the 5th. And, we're now living in an episode of The Handmaid's Tale. So that's bonkers, and they've all lost their minds. But to be totally fair, I've poked enough fun at them, I think. There are people who are legitimately scared that our democracy is going to end. There are women who are afraid they're going to lose their rights. I think I might dive into that particular aspect of it a little bit more next week, because today I really do want to stay focused on why Kamala lost. But just very briefly, take a deep breath. I promise you that Trump is not Hitler. I promise you we are not heading towards a dictatorship. I promise you we're not going to degrade or devolve rather into fascism. This is my promise to you. Okay, so not only am I relieved that this is a chance to course correct, but it is also a big, fat, orange middle finger to the elite class, to the Democrat Party, to that ideology. And that is almost more exciting because for the last 4 years, some could argue much, much longer than that, they have been on their little high horses, thinking that everyone everywhere agrees with them. And they got a very loud awakening on Tuesday that, in fact, most people disagree with them. And that is fantastic. I am a big fan of that because, as y'all know, I like to yap. It is one of my favorite things in the world to do. And I very strongly felt like I had my finger on the pulse of this country. I felt very strongly that I was correct about this when I would see leftists online or like X, for example, and they would be saying the exact opposite of what I was saying. I just felt in my gut that they were wrong about this, and I was correct. A lot of us were correct, and the validation is immense. So if you saw my video from last Thursday, I did a reaction video to all of the leftist meltdowns over the Trump win. And the through line of that video was that these people are blaming half of America for being racist, misogynist, all of the ists and obias and drill. And what they fail to realize is that it is this exact thing. It is that name calling. It is that condescending attitude that caused them to lose. People are so incredibly fed up with it, and they refuse to look in a mirror and grapple with the fact that people are fed up with it. And they are just like doubling down on this ideology. And I just don't see how they can course correct and fix this. First step to fixing a problem is admitting that you have one, and they won't admit that they have one. And I saw this a lot in my personal life too. the first 24 hours after the election, I had a ton of people that I personally know, people I've been friends with for years, unfollow me. And that was just a little insane to me because, well, first of all, if you follow me online, you know that I am hyper political. It was not a shock or a surprise that I voted for Trump, but there does seem to be this movement of, we're really done with you now. If you voted for Trump, you've doomed all of us, and we cannot be friends anymore. Okay, bye-bye. First of all, thank you for showing me your true colors. And the other side of this coin is that obviously when Joe Biden won in 2020, I wasn't thrilled. That was not the ideal outcome that I wanted to happen, but I never shamed any of my friends because at the end of the day, these are people that I've known for a very long time. And if I've known you for that long, then there's a good chance that I know your heart and that I've had conversations with you and I know that I know the type of person you are. And while I might think that you are completely wrong and brainwashed on the topic, I know that you don't have ill intent. I know that you aren't a bad person, and they do not grant that same compassion, that same grace in the opposite direction. And for all of the talk about turning down the temperature in this country, it really does seem to strongly be coming from one side. And I know the right can definitely be guilty of this too, do not get me wrong, but wow, am I feeling it from the left right now. And I don't even want to say the left because these people were my friends, but just look in a mirror, you know? I feel like I've said that so many times this week, but it's just, I want to squeeze these people because you're sitting here screaming, calling half of the country racist, and you're not asking, how did we get here? You're just presuming that we're all bad people. And I promise you, that's just not going to be a fruitful approach. So if you are in that boat, I say all of that to say, if you are in that boat of thinking that half the country is horrible, horrible people, Nazis, buckle up. Because I'm going to outline for you a couple of reasons why Kamala Harris lost. One of which is that she was just annoying and horrible and awful. We'll be more serious than that, I promise. So one thing that I don't think that people are accounting for is the monumental culture shift that has occurred over the last 30 to 40 years. You know, once upon a time, it was the left who had embraced the mantra of live and let live. And the right was the more forceful side that wanted society to live in the way that they live. That's just not true anymore. And people seem to have a really hard time coming to terms with this. In fact, it is the complete inverse of that at this moment in time. The right, I'm always very hesitant to say the Republican Party because I feel like Trump's Republican Party just is, to lump that in with Republicans doesn't feel right. It just feels like its own entity. It feels like its own separate thing. But for the sake of conversation, we will do so. It's cool to be a Republican these days. And people are going to really hate to hear that. But the Republican Party is the big umbrella party. They welcome in anybody and everybody. And to be a leftist, you have to be this, this, this. If you step out of this line or that line, then you are done. We hate you now. So, you know, it's the party lines have completely switched. And part of that is the fact that the leftist ideology is the prevailing ideology in society. It's in our universities, our corporations, it's in Hollywood. And this is where, you know, it's so apparent, and it was already very apparent, but holy cannolis, over the last week has it just been blaring how much of a bubble this group of people are living in. They are so out of touch with America. And I don't want to hear anyone say that I'm wrong about this, because America voted. A lot of Americans voted, and more than half of the people who voted agree with what I'm saying. So what is insane about how much of a landslide we had in this election is that it kind of felt like everything was poised for us to lose. And what I mean by that is that the entire media apparatus is set up to benefit the left and the Democrats. So what are some of the top news broadcasting networks? We have CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, right? Well, 4 out of 5 of those are incredibly biased towards the left. And if you don't believe me, just look at this. You can find similar things about CNN or MSNBC, but let's look here in regards to NBC, ABC, and CBS. So in 2004, they covered Democrats 37% more positively than Republicans. In 2008, it was 33% more. By 2020, it jumps to 58% more. And in 2024, there is a 63% differential in coverage. So all of the different audiences of these networks have a 63% higher chance of hearing something positive about Kamala Harris than they do Trump. And if that doesn't influence people's opinion, I mean, what else is going to? When it comes to the news, we're talking about politics. This is one of the primary sources that people get their information to inform their politics. However, what I don't think that they banked on is that the fact that the American people have lost complete faith in these networks, because 4 out of 5 of them told us that Joe Biden was completely with it up until the debate. 4 out of 5 of them told us that the COVID vaccine would stop transmission. 4 out of 5 of them have spent the last 8 years painting Trump out to be Hitler. So I just, it's no surprise if you've been paying any attention why people have lost faith and lost trust in mainstream media, but yet they all seemed shocked to shit. And if you want to dive deeper into the ways in which the media have been manipulating us, this is something that I talk about often on this show, and I just do not think that we hate the media enough, y'all. So look at this chart. It outlines how many times a year certain buzzwords are mentioned in publications such as the New York Times, Washington Post, LA Times, and Wall Street Journal. Now, isn't it weird how terms like homophobia, transphobia, Islamophobia, sexism, misogyny, all of these fantastic buzzwords that we have come to know and love spiked around 2015, 2016? What historic event happened in 2015 that maybe might have lent itself to such increased media manipulation? Let's think about that for a sec. Is it maybe possible that mainstream media kicked into high gear, got the propaganda ready to go once somebody in DC sounded the alarms that Donald Trump is threatening to take down the whole system, right? Because he ran on the campaign of Drain the Swamp. He just put out a video a couple of days ago talking about his detailed plan to dissemble the deep state. Some might label me a conspiracy theorist, and that's fine, because the level to which I know that I'm right about this, I can't even tell you. But as I mentioned, people are not watching mainstream media anymore. They are watching podcasts, which was one of the reasons why that Trump and Vance both doing the Joe Rogan Experience was so beneficial, especially that close to the end, and why Kamala Harris electing to not participate was crazy. But if we want to talk about Kamala Harris not participating, it was on his episode with Theo Vaughn that he released last week. He discussed the fact that, we all know that she wanted him to fly to her. They were only going to do an hour. But he also mentioned that they did give him a list of things that they could not talk about. He did not go into detail about what those things were, but Trump went in there, and Rogan has said that they didn't have anything that was off the table. They just shot the shit, and people got to see a real side of Trump. And it was a game-winning strategy. All of the podcasts that he did was a game-winning strategy. And you might be asking yourself, but Kamala Harris did podcasts as well. But as we talked about a couple of episodes ago, if you would look at the numbers behind these podcasts, they did not stack up. Trump would have tens of millions of views, and Kamala Harris only broke 1 million one time. Trump would have hundreds of thousands of likes on each video, and Kamala Harris every time had more dislikes than she had likes. And I said previously that I think that this is a strong indicator of how the American people feel. And it felt like a kind of funny thing to say, like, oh, I'm gauging the American people's perception of these candidates based off of YouTube likes. But I think I was right. I think that I was right in that assessment. And I think that was a valid way to view it, because who's watching these videos? Voters. Voters are watching them, voters are reacting to them, and the insane differential on these podcast videos reflected in the election. And the fact that she was this unpopular despite the media running cover for her the entire time is honestly an accomplishment in and of itself. Don't y'all remember at the beginning of this year when she was the least popular vice president in American history? No, I am not being hyperbolic. She was more unpopular than Dick Cheney. Maybe that's why she decided to campaign with Liz. More on that later. But then all of a sudden she gets announced as the candidate, and she is apparently the most beloved person in this administration, of any administration. Actually, Kamala Harris, she's our queen. We worship at her feet. Whatever she wants, we give. And it was transparent. People saw through it, and it was sickening. So I would say all of that is probably about 30 to 40% of the battle as to why she lost. The distrust in mainstream media, right? Watching as how over the last 4 years, everything with COVID, especially how they lied and how the trust went down in them. And then all of a sudden they were pro Kamala Harris, how they constantly were running cover for her, how she did not take advantage of alternative media. And when she did, it flopped horrendously because she comes across as so inauthentic. This woman is like just a walking vessel of nothing. There is nothing there. I mean, she seems like such a cold person. And I think that a lot of people agree with that. She tried to run on this campaign of joy, happiness, and cackles, but baby, it was ice cold in there. But all of that comes together as to why the media could not save her. Besides the media, I think that a portion of this, not a large portion, but a portion nonetheless that we're not giving enough credence to, is the fact that she was installed. Nobody voted for her. There was not a primary. She was selected and placed in as the presidential nominee. And what's so funny about that is, for all of the calls about fascism, that's fascism, right? Avoiding the democratic process of having an election to select who is running to run the country, that's fascism. Anyways, as we already touched on, this does largely come down to being anti-woke agenda. However, I would say that it is equally, if not more, anti-establishment. This is another point that I have been drilling home. So if you've been listening to my podcast, you've heard me go on a lot of these rants already. But what a perfect time to put them all together. The people are tired of the established way things are running. They are tired of seeing big pharma and the military industrial complex and the universities and big food and all of these things colluding, media and working together, and just became this nasty, corrupt blob. And that is the appeal of Trump. You have to understand that while we are going through reasons why Kamala Harris lost, this is the reason that Trump won, is because he is the metaphorical wrecking ball to that blob. And the American people want that blob to go away. It is as simple as that. As I touched on earlier, I think that people have a very hard time grappling with the concept of Trump and with the right being anti-establishment, because for almost all of history, that has been the position of the left. They have been the ones who have been fighting against war, who have been fighting against pharmaceuticals, who have been fighting against the establishment. But somewhere along the line, I guess when you fight hard enough, you win. And somewhere along the line, they won. And now they are the establishment. And those are just the facts on the ground. And if people on the left don't see that and recognize that and reckon with it, they're going to continue to lose, because they have become the thing that America is fighting against. The right has become the counterculture. The right has become the movement of the rebels. The right has become the side that is opposing all of the things that the left used to oppose. And speaking of things that we oppose, this is an excellent time to circle back to Liz Cheney and Kamala Harris's political endorsements. On top of the rest of the shit show of a campaign that she ran, she trotted out Liz Cheney, the daughter of one of the greatest war hawks in American history. I really do think that for the liberal vote, for the independent vote that the right was vying for, that the right and that we were both fighting over, I think that her campaigning with Liz Cheney did a lot of damage, because one big issue for people in the middle is war. It's Palestine, it's Ukraine. They take great problem with the things that are happening overseas. And when you trot out Liz Cheney, who is avidly in favor of these things, makes a living off of war, hey, yeah, that's not going to resonate so well with a lot of people that you're trying to get the vote of. But it didn't stop there. She was also endorsed by 200 alumni of Bush and Romney, and I believe it was Cheney. And she was endorsed by the gosh darn IRS. On the flip side, Trump was endorsed by Border Patrol. So, I mean, just like the contrast, you guys. This election was 99% optics, right? And the optics here, we haven't even gotten through all of it, but the optics so far are poor. They are so bad. And I kept saying this all throughout her campaign. The optics are bad. The optics of this are very, very bad. Because ultimately, she kept surrounding herself with the types of people that Americans have lost trust in. The two largest being government officials and the media. And I think what that one comes down to is they simply misread the tea leaves. And it comes back to what I said earlier about them being in the most insulated bubble I've ever seen in my entire life. I do think that they thought that by Trump surrounding himself with DC rejects like Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr., that was a signal to the American people that DC doesn't trust him and that's a bad thing. When in fact, it was a signal to the American people that DC doesn't trust him and that's a good thing. They simply overestimated the American people's tolerance of the establishment. But since we are on the topic of endorsements, let's check out her celebrity endorsements, shall we? I don't think I can name all of them if I tried, but let's try anyways. Taylor Swift, Beyonce, Jennifer Lopez, Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, LeBron James, Jessica Alba, Ariana Grande, Billie Eilish, Jamie Lee Curtis, Christina Applegate, Bette Midler, Lady Gaga, Mick Jagger, Katy Perry, Rihanna, Stevie Nicks, Demi Lovato, Eminem, Lizzo, Usher, Olivia Rodrigo, John Legend, Kesha, Viola Davis, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Will Ferrell, Julia Roberts, George Clooney, Barbra Streisand, Ben Stiller, Mark Hamill, Robert De Niro, Anne Hathaway, The Avengers, just as a whole, just to name a few. Darn flab, how did that not do the trick? We had all of these famous people saying to vote for Kamala Harris. How did that not work? The fact that people operate under the assumption that celebrities hold any influence over elections has been bonkers to me this whole time. Why would I listen to somebody who cannot relate to my life as an average American? Of course, Taylor Swift's biggest issue is going to be LGBTQ rights. What else would it possibly be? She does not have to worry about buying groceries for her family. She does not have to worry about putting gas in her car or her private jet. She doesn't have to worry about any of these things. So of course it's going to be social issues. And this is where the disconnect, I think this is where one of the things that made the disconnect shine so brightly is the Democrat Party kept running on social issues really hard. And the right ran on a few. The right really listened to the American people when they said, we can't afford groceries. We can't afford gas. We're scared about what's going on overseas. The Democrats didn't. They said, abortions, gay marriage, all things that Trump isn't gonna touch, by the way. But by trotting out all of these celebrities who agree that the biggest issues are things such as abortion or gay marriage, it just showed how disconnected they are from Americans. And another facet of this that I don't think is as big, but I don't think doesn't exist, is it was a hell of a time to trot out all of these celebrity endorsements, considering everything that was going on with P. Diddy. So you want to talk about a lack of trust? maybe trotting out J-Lo, who dated P. Diddy. She got on stage and warned everybody about Donald Trump, but her lips were sealed about P. Diddy. So I think all of this kind of comes together to paint a picture of just a lack of listening. The Democrat Party did not listen to the American people. The Democrat Party lectured the American people. And this was a referendum on every single thing that they've been saying. We're tired of it. We're fed up with it. We don't want to hear it anymore. We want to be able to put food on the table for our family. And whether or not they hear this and whether or not they listen to that, I don't know. Because I've seen a ton of people saying that, no, she ran a perfect campaign and it's just racism, it's misogyny, same old, same old. So if they continue to double down, then I don't know how they win another election. People are so tired of it. They're tired of the establishment. They're tired of woke ideology. They just want to be able to live their lives. So that's my analysis, you guys. And it is all that I have for you guys today. So thank you so much for tuning in, listening. I appreciate it greatly. Make sure you are subscribed to this channel because I put a podcast episode out every single Monday. I do reaction videos on Thursdays. So there's always a lot going on over here. And I will see you guys all next Monday for the podcast. Bye.